Welcome to U.S. Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: down on the Biden economy, why Americans aren't happy. If I buy a used Chevrolet Bolt, will I have to charge it outside or risk a fire? David Walliams has had suicidal thoughts since BGT leaked recordings. She buys all her groceries across the U.S. border and finds big savings. The best thing about reality TV pregnancies? There's nothing realistic about them. Down on the Biden economy, why Americans aren't happy. Japan Times. Paul Krugman, a columnist for the New York Times, is puzzled as to why ordinary American voters do not share his positive view of President Joe Biden's economy. Despite low inflation, low unemployment, economic growth, and high stock market valuations, Biden's economy only has a 36% approval rating from voters. Journalist Glenn Greenwald suggests that Krugman's confusion stems from his own privileged position and class bias. However, the author notes that Krugman's tastes have likely not changed much since his early days as a junior faculty member at Yale. If I buy a used Chevrolet Bolt, will I have to charge it outside or risk a fire? The Globe and Mail. Owners of Chevrolet Bolt electric vehicles, EVs, that have been fixed following a recall related to a fire risk should still only charge their vehicles outside, according to Automotive Protection Association President George Inney. GM issued the recall notice for more than 9,700 2017 to 2019 Bolts and then a second recall for 2020 to 2022 Bolts and 2022 Bolt EUVs. After the fix, some Bolts received new batteries while others received new software that limits the battery's maximum charge level to 80% and monitors the batteries for 10,000 kilometers to detect faulty cells. If there is a problem, owners are asked to come in for a replacement battery. David Walliams has had suicidal thoughts since BGT leaked recordings. The Independent. Comedian and author David Walliams has filed a lawsuit against Fremantle Media, the production company behind Britain's Got Talent, BGT, claiming that he has been experiencing suicidal thoughts and has lost the ability to be funny since leaving the show. Walliams exited BGT in January 2023 following the emergence of sexually explicit and derogatory remarks he made about contestants during the show's filming in January 2020. Walliams alleges that the production company recorded and transcribed private conversations without his knowledge and is seeking £6.1 million, $8 million, in damages. She buys all her groceries across the U.S. border and finds big savings. CBC. Canadian shoppers are crossing the U.S. border to buy groceries due to lower prices. Brandy Dustin, a resident of Rooseville, British Columbia, saves around $300 Canadian $207 per month on food by shopping in the U.S. Although bread, fruit and vegetables are roughly the same price in both countries, milk, cheese, butter and meat are much cheaper in the U.S. Factors contributing to lower food prices in the U.S. include lower wages and a larger market size, which leads to more competition. In addition, Canada's supply management system limits its supply of certain products, which can drive up prices. The best thing about reality TV pregnancies? There's nothing realistic about them. The Sydney Morning Herald. Reality TV shows have long been criticized for their lack of connection to actual reality, and this is particularly true when it comes to the portrayal of pregnancy and motherhood. The author of this article reflects on her own experience of watching reality TV shows during her pregnancy and postpartum period, finding solace in the unreality of the shows. While her own life was chaotic and overwhelming, the lives of the reality TV stars remained unchanged, providing a sense of comfort and escapism. The author acknowledges the artifice of these shows but embraces them as a form of fantasy. Israel-Palestinian conflict explained. The Independent. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict can be traced back to the late 18th century, when Napoleon Bonaparte proposed a Jewish homeland in Palestine. This idea was revived in the 19th century, when wealthy benefactors began sponsoring Jewish immigrants to establish settlements in Palestine. The Zionist movement gained momentum, culminating in the First Zionist Congress in 1897, where plans for an independent Jewish nation were discussed. British support for the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine was formalized in the Balfour Declaration of 1917, but was met with opposition by the Palestinian population. The State of Israel was founded in May 1948, prompting the bloody Arab-Israeli War and the displacement of 700,000 Palestinian people. The UN General Assembly passed Resolution 194 in December 1948, recognizing the right of Palestinian refugees to return to their homes, but Israel rejected this notion. Israel signed armistice agreements with its neighbors in 1949, but tensions and violence continued to erupt sporadically. The Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO, was founded in 1964, dedicated to armed revolution for the liberation of Palestine. Israel's military advances in 1967 and its refusal to withdraw from occupied territories prompted UN resolutions calling for a ceasefire and Israeli retreat, which were ignored by Israel. Efforts towards peace were made with the Camp David Accords in 1978 and the Oslo Accords in 1993 and 1995, which granted Palestinian autonomy but not statehood. Violence resumed with the Second Intifada in 2000 and Israel's reoccupation of West Bank cities in 2002. The situation was further destabilized by the death of Yasser Arafat in 2004. Since then, violence has continued, with Israel launching repeated assaults on Gaza and the U.S. relocating its embassy to Jerusalem. The tensions have recently escalated, with Hamas launching rockets at Israel and the country responding with airstrikes in Gaza. The ingrained racism the Yes case must defeat to prevail. The Sydney Morning Herald. The Australian public needs to confront its unconscious negativity towards Indigenous people if it wants to move the country forward, according to an op-ed published in the Sydney Morning Herald. The article argued that a deep-seated, unconscious attitude of negativity towards Indigenous people is part of Australia's DNA. The author cited an incident at an airport check-in screening counter where security officers targeted a small, unassuming Indigenous woman for a bag search while ignoring rowdy, young white men. The incident was described as a reflection of Australia's national psyche and its unwillingness to embrace change. Van Gisbergen goes back-to-back in Bathurst 1000. The Sydney Morning Herald. Shane Van Gisbergen has secured his third consecutive victory at the Bathurst 1000, becoming the first driver in 15 years to achieve this feat. He and his co-driver Richie Stanaway took the victory by almost 21 seconds. The win was significant as it came in the first Bathurst race of the Gen 3, post-Commodore era, and the 21st win out of 24 for the Camaro this season. Van Gisbergen's victory also keeps him in contention for a third straight Supercars title. He will leave the Supercars series at the end of the season to drive full-time in NASCAR in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the six-dimensional world, here to bring you the latest news and insights. Today, we discussed a range of topics, from the Biden economy to reality TV pregnancies, and even delved into the complex history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So, let's dive in. Starting with the Biden economy, it seems that despite positive economic indicators like low inflation, low unemployment, and economic growth, President Biden's approval rating on the economy is only at 36%. Our friend Paul Krugman is puzzled by this, but perhaps his own privileged position and class bias are clouding his understanding. After all, tastes don't change much, even if you've moved up in the world from your junior faculty days at Yale. Moving on, we explored the concerns surrounding the Chevrolet Bolt electric vehicles, EVs. Owners who have had their vehicles fixed following a recall related to a fire risk are still advised to charge their cars outside. It's always better to be safe than sorry, especially when it comes to the risk of fire. So, if you're a Bolt owner, make sure to heed this advice and take care of your beloved electric vehicle. In entertainment news, comedian David Walliams has filed a lawsuit against the production company behind Britain's Got Talent, claiming that he has been experiencing suicidal thoughts and has lost his ability to be funny since leaving the show. It's a serious matter, and Walliams alleges that his private conversations were recorded without his consent. Let's hope this situation gets resolved in a fair and just manner. On a lighter note, we discovered that Canadian shoppers are going to great lengths, or rather, great distances, to save on their grocery bills. By crossing the U.S. border, they're able to enjoy lower prices on milk, cheese, butter, and meat. It seems that factors like lower wages and a larger market size contribute to lower food prices in the U.S. So, if you're a Canadian looking to save some money on your groceries, maybe it's time for a road trip. We also explored the intriguing world of reality TV pregnancies. While reality TV shows may lack connection to actual reality, they provide a sense of comfort and escapism, especially for those going through the chaotic and overwhelming process of pregnancy and motherhood. The author of the article we discussed found solace in the unreality of these shows, embracing them as a form of fantasy. Sometimes, a little dose of fantasy can be just what we need. Shifting gears, we delved into the long and complex history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. From Napoleon Bonaparte's proposal of a Jewish homeland in Palestine to the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, the conflict has been marked by tensions, violence, and failed peace efforts. The situation remains volatile, with recent escalations in violence between Israel and Hamas. It's a complex issue that requires careful consideration and understanding from all parties involved. Lastly, we explored the ingrained racism that the Yes case in Australia must overcome to prevail. The article argued that Australia needs to confront its unconscious negativity towards Indigenous people if it wants to move forward as a country. An incident at an airport check-in counter served as a stark reminder of this unconscious bias. It's time for Australia to reflect on its national psyche and embrace positive change. And there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour of the latest news and insights from around the world. I hope you've enjoyed our time together, and I encourage you to share your thoughts and questions. What are your ideas on the Biden economy, reality TV pregnancies, or any other topic we've discussed? Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the world around you. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.